I figured while I was recording today, I might as well throw in one more, just a short one, just to talk about one of the things that I'm doing. And this was, I mentioned in my first video that one of the things I did early on was I started listening to podcasts. I still listen to podcasts as many as I can. Please make podcasts, people, so I have something to listen to at work. But I was listening to one of my early finds and my favorites still is Adam from Splendid Sports, and he was doing his Turn Back the Clock edition of with Dylan, and those two are fantastic together. I really enjoy that. Um, but I was listening to that, and when they first started talking about the Turn Back the Clock, it wasn't actually on a Turn Back the Clock edition. It was in one or two of their other podcasts, I think, and I can't remember exactly when. I've listened to all of them, but one of them that I was listening to, and it made me remember just how much I loved the Turn Back the Clock cards from when I was growing up. And so that kind of took me into a dive into that. I want to talk about that just real quickly. This shouldn't take long, but let me show you some of my Turn Back the Clock cards. So again, as I mentioned, I am not a graded collector. I tend to do binders, and so all of my cards are loose. So if that bothers you, I'm sorry. These are on penny sleeves right now, but I had to pull them out of my binder. I didn't want to try to show my binder. But anyway, I also mentioned that I was a Ricky Henderson collector, and as a kid, I could never afford his rookie cards, but I loved this Turn Back the Clock card because it showed him in his with his 1982 card. I'm sure he's getting ready to steal a base there. I mean, what else would he do if he's on base but steal the next one? And so I remember going into a card shop. This probably would have been 89, 90, and that 1982. When you're 9 and 10, 11 years old, 1982. That's a long time ago. And so I remember going into a card shop, and in one of those wonderful screw down cases that we all know and love was the 1982 Topps Ricky Henderson, and I just could not believe my luck. And so I picked that card up. I didn't buy many singles in those days, but I did once in a while. And so that was I just had to buy that one. I loved open packs when I was a kid. I still love opening packs, by the way. But the only other one, I would have had other ones of these Turn Back the Clock cards, but the only one I ever remembered having was the Bob Gibson. And so when I heard Adam and Dylan start talking about these, man, I went out and pulled out my Ricky Hendersons, and I found this Bob Gibson card, and just like it got me so excited. And because I'd been listening to like Mike and others, like the idea of buying vintage cards was no longer scary. And so I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the Turn Back the Clock thing. Adam and Dylan talked about this. This is certainly not original to me, but I'm going to start buying these cards, these Turn Back the Clock cards, and I'm going to buy the cards that go with them from that year. And other than the Ricky Henderson, the Bob Gibson was the only one I remembered, like as an adult, the only one I could really kind of picture in my own head. And so I was excited about getting that one. And so I've gone to card shows quite a few times, and of course you see these cards. It's not like these cards are impossible to find, but I went up to a card a table, and he had that Bob Gibson card, and I cannot tell you how excited I was to be able to buy that Bob Gibson from when I was young. And of course, that's the 1968 Bob Gibson, a pretty significant year for Bob Gibson. And meanwhile, now I'm living in Pittsburgh, and so while I still collect some Ricky Henderson, but I wanted to collect somebody who was vintage. And well, I'm a Pirates fan, so who else would you collect that's vintage other than Roberto Clemente? And so I began picking up some Roberto Clemente cards, and this Turn Back the Clock card, of course, from 1972. What a fantastic card. I love how off center it is in the Turn Back the Clock card. They obviously were not thinking about that back then. So at the table where I bought that Bob Gibson card, he also had the 72 Roberto Clemente. And because I collect them raw, that did it for me. And I was so excited to find those. So of course now I keep these in a binder. And what I've done is I have a turn back the clock card, and then the card from when it was, and then I have one of their other cards. It can be a playing day card, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It's just stuff I've enjoyed collecting along the way. The only other thing that's really fun about this set, actually, there's a couple interesting things about this set. I could have pulled out some more, but they're not all Hall of Famers. They're not all good players. You know, several of them are nobodies, quite frankly. Um, but one of the interesting things about this set, and probably some of you at least will know this, is this Maury Wills card from 1987. Of course, is the Turn Back the Clock card. That card in the card doesn't actually exist. In 1962, there is no Maury Wills card. He does not have one. You can look it up. But that card in itself does not exist, which is kind of funny. And so the card in card thing actually exists in 3 different forms, which is quite amusing. They have this one, which has the most valuable players, which he gets pictured with Mickey Mantle. So I guess that's pretty cool. And then Kmart, wonderful Kmart cards. Kmart card has the Maury Wills as well. And so these are the 3 cards that they have. This is it. These are the 3 from this year, which is kind of funny that they've done card in cards of the 1962 card that does not exist, and they've done it 3 different times. They don't seem to be bothered by this at all. But anyway, just thanks to Adam and Dylan for getting me very excited about this. I could show you some more of these cards. I haven't finished this set. For me, there's no rush in these things. I've got a few of them I'm still looking to pick up, but excited to do this as I proceed. So thanks again for watching, and hope to see you again soon.